You can hear them crying at the lane. Everett J scores again. Yes, guys, welcome back to TDK Plus and the squad. Hope you are all doing fantastically, splendiferously, stupendously, tremendously, superbly, fantastically. I've said that one already. All of the adjectives after that fantastic weekend of football. We are here to break it down. We are here. I've been looking forward to this one, boys, with Rahanicals and Mr. Tie-Dye. How are you both?
Oh, fantastic. You know, we did the IR and that. It went in all sorts of directions, to be honest, but that's what it's about.
I've had such a good day.
Same.
I've had such a good day. It is embarrassing. We've said this before on the pod, but it is embarrassing how much football affects me. I've answered all my WhatsApps. I've cleaned out my emails. No one says you're just like
productive.
Bash, everything. Everything.
Yeah.
How are you, George? I didn't see on the instant reaction.
I'm good, man. I'm good. Look, you know what? I love to try to be like super analytical as much as I can always, but sometimes it just freaking feels good. And there's nothing like a top six, and there's nothing like a North London derby win. And you know what? It means something, man. It means something. And, you're sitting there and, you're getting out of yourself. And look, you have an experience and it just gets you out of a dark place. And, and it does. Like a good result. It just, we can just put all your good emotions into that. And you're like, I can just live in the moment. This is a good day. This is a good thing. And that's what you focus on.
We kept saying in this interaction, we needed that. We needed that so bad.
I'm sorry to say, I needed it the most. If it's like any Arsenal, I needed that. My head was all over the place after the past couple of weeks. And but as a collective, it's just nice to go on the timeline and everybody's happy, isn't it? It's good.
It's good. We are here to break it down. We're here to get into all of the weeds, all of the discussions about individuals and collective, and all the fun stuff. So stick with us. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to us. Give us a like. Give us a comment as well. Let us know where you're watching from. That's the comment of the day today. Let us know where you're watching from, because I know we have some international listeners as well. We've got, we should have done a rewatch for this one, but we've got some scouters coming this week. We've got a data review coming this week. So a very good time. It's always a good time to become a Patreon or YouTube member, but you can get that involved from that angle as well. I'm going to start with this. Rohan, I'll have your word of the day later, please. And just to tease people, we have got word of the day coming. I know we want to talk about ourselves, and we should. There's a genuine possibility Tottenham Hotspur get relegated. And I just want to start here to say that there is can we just one more time? Spurs, in the season we might win the league, Spurs might get relegated. Can we just savor this moment for a second? They are, George, in deep trouble. The technical level, awful. Disconnected. I think a lot of the joy that we had, which we'll come on to from our perspective, was, I'm not taking any credit away from us, but it was also to do with how bad Spurs were. They're on 29 points. They're 4 points above the relegation zone. They've got injuries everywhere. They've got to go to Palace. They've got to go to Anfield. They've got Nottingham Forest. They've got to go to the Stadium of Light, and they've got to play Brighton in the next few games. George, they're in trouble, mate.
I had a look at the pick. I mean, you've got Wolves and Leeds within there, but you've got Fulham, Palace, Liverpool, Forest, Brighton. I mean, we know.
Are they winning any of those? Genuinely,
I don't know. Not based off what we've seen.
The Palace game is massive, isn't it? They're not doing anything against Fulham, I don't think. But the Palace game, maybe.
Sometimes you talk about the relegation scrap, and you're like, there's like a tone. You're like, I can't see them winning any of those. And there's like a bit of a tone.
Yeah.
Can't see them winning any of those.
and Forest is a huge deal. It's a relegation clash. It's huge. I don't know what to say because I want to be fair, but I don't, and it's just too funny as far as looking at the narratives with it. It is one of those things that I think would be a complete utter embarrassment. It would actually officially relegate them for me to not be considered a top six team. I don't think you can seriously be a top six team and be relegated, so that can be put to one side. And it's one of those that there's a lot of stuff. I don't think we've seen this in modern times, by the way. Everyone has had their moment of a dip. I don't think, it's just classic Spurs. No one's gone as low as Spurs has in all of their worst moments. I mean, United have flirted with really low place finishes, but they ultimately have never really finished in the relegation zone. They've had moments where they maybe were there, but Tottenham have a very big chance of not just ending there, but being 1 point above the drop. And now that's the second season in a row. Like, at what point is there a serious discussion as far as saying, no, they are not a top 16? And I think that's a genuine discussion at this point. If you're on 2 seasons on the bounce in which you are 1 or 2 above a relegation spot, it's becoming ridiculous, let alone if you do it. It's just the most Spursy thing, but it's just
do it out, mate. Just do it out.
Their fans deserve it. There's that one guy who always has like a Mikel Arteta banner, like irrespective of what game they are facing, who they play, he just has that banner. Like, mate, you're just a melt. You are just a melt, and your entire club is so tin pot. It's crazy. Genuinely, the only purpose of Spurs is for holding concerts, the big stars. That's all it has, And we need to get to that level, to be fair, because we've only had the likes of Robbie Williams recently.
And that was a great concert, I'll tell you that. It was good fun.
He's a bit washed, though, isn't he? He's a bit washed.
He's not. How dare you? Robbie Williams is not washed. He's a great entertainer. And his new album is actually genuinely quite good. Right, who cares about Spurs? Get relegated. See you later. We are on the up, boys. We're on 61 points. We've crossed the 60-point threshold. Some winnable fixtures coming up. It's crazy how much of a difference one result makes, but I think But look, the reason it matters, yes, of course, there's the Spurs aspect of it. There's the rivalry and how funny it is that they're potentially going down. But it was the performance, and I think this is kind of the flip of the Wolves game. I'll come to you on this, Rohan. The thing that we were talking about on TDK Live on Thursday was forget result, forget the right players, the tactics, whatever. If the application and the desire to win the game isn't there, it doesn't matter. And that Wolves game was one of the only times I've ever felt under this Arteta tenure that the application level dropped. Last 20 minutes, it's like we weren't trying. And I think that's what really, really upset us in the Wolves game. Now, let's be clear, that can happen, but you have to react to it. And we did. I think from minute one, despite the PJMOL trying to stop us with the communication issues, from minute one, we dominated. We won second balls. We were at them. We were aggressive. We were quick on the ball. The tempo was good. And there's some specific tactical stuff I want to get into in just a second of how we did it. But from an application perspective, and maybe you could even put this in with your word of the day, Rohan, how happy were you with that?
Fantastic, and I'm going to let you do the tactics today because I've not rewatched it. I've not rewatched the game, so I'm not entirely sure on the intricacies.
Fake fan.
I'm fake fan. So I'm looking forward to.
And he rewatched Port Vale.
Yeah,
I rewatched but I'm looking forward to watching that back. But yeah, I mean, we, conscious of not rehashing some of the things that we were saying in the IR, but when we did that TDK live, we both said can stomach drop points. I can always stomach drop points. We have been on this podcast many times where we've defended a team where we've dropped points because we've seen them perform. We can obviously criticize some of the actual intricacies of, specific tactics in and out of possession. But ultimately what I've seen with this team are some really bad habits. It's like when you start driving, at the start, you have certain habits in which, you just can't get out of your system, but you keep doing them, and the driving instructor is just there on your neck. I know my driving instructor was he hated me because I was just an absolute idiot. But the team was displaying some really poor mistakes in terms of the technical level. And this is where it comes to my word of the day. The word is panacea. Panacea. Oh, for God's sake.
Literally, before we go on, I got to make sure that I pronounce this right.
Oh, my God. This is the hardest bit. Do you guys know what that means?
Panacea? Or panacea? Yeah. Which one?
Oh, for God's sake.
Either I don't, so you can educate me.
I'm going to quickly double check.
He literally, before we went live, he went, I've got to make sure I pronounce this right.
I've just lost it. Panacea. There we go, yeah. Panacea.
Go for it. Go tell us.
Do you know what that means, boys?
I don't. I actually don't. So you educate me.
So, I will say, I'm going to put it in the sentence first because I'm actually butchering this now. Arsenal doing the basics is the panacea to most of their problems. So it effectively means a solution to your problems.
Got you.
Oh, God, that was
a solution or remedy for all difficulties or diseases.
Problems. We haven't got diseases. We haven't got diseases. Problems.
Well,
depends on yeah, but yeah, I genuinely feel like that was the driver. You know, I've not watched it back, but that was the driver. The technical level of the team was largely very good outside of a few spells, and the point that you made about reacting, that was key, because we reacted when we had some of those poor passes in build up from individuals like Gabriel, obviously Rice with the mistake, and for me the response was really good. But just in general, like, the ball largely was on the ground, you know, as we built through the lines and we were sustaining pressure. For me, that is key, because if I think, you know, over recent weeks, you know, we've been looking from the timeline, we've been looking at the wrong things. Like, we're looking too deep into certain aspects of the tactics, in which I think it's simply a macro problem. It is literally the team is not getting their foot on the ball and controlling the game for large spells. If you can't do that, you're not going to sustain any pressure. You're not going to put a team under any stress in their block. We've not been able to do that. We didn't do it against Brentford after they equalised. We didn't do it against Wolves in the second half. I can't think of like a 2-minute spell in that Wolves second half in which we actually sustained pressure. That is crazy. You know, so if you can't do that, I can't criticise the intricacies, because we were never in a position to display the intricacies. Do you know what I mean? So whereas in the Spurs game, I feel there were a lot of interesting things that happened in the game, but we were able to see that because we did the basics.
Yeah.
And that for me is the biggest reason as to why we won that game, and why I was ready to go on the IR. And even, you know, after the Declan Rice mistake, and let's say we produced the same performance in the second half, but we dropped points, I would have backed the team, because I would have said, I've got a performance. You know, it's not the result we wanted, but I've got a performance. But thankfully, the result was certainly worthy of the actual, you know, what we produced on the evening. So.
Yeah, I think post Wolves, it's very hard to listen to anything and take it sort of seriously and go, yeah, it's really good. You just want to pick holes in whatever they say. But to be fair, I think almost all of the post Wolves was like, we just didn't control the game. Yeah. And you're right. Like, it is a bit, you've got to be able to put your foot on it for periods of a game and actually get yourself into the game. But yeah, I thought the application was much better. We saw a reaction. I think we completely dominated, and there were certain things that we did, George, that helped us to do that. From this perspective, just a couple of things to sort of tee you up. I think what I was really, really pleased with is Spurs set up very man-to-man, which I thought was impressive. But again, I think it's easy to go and say man-to-man and have those intentions and be brave and be aggressive. You have to back it up. You have to be brave. You have to be, if you're Mickey van der Ven and Igor Tudor's on the side saying step up, it tells us, you know, how scared potentially they are of us, but you have to be able to sort of back that up. I thought we did well to disconnect them when they started to get a little bit scared and those spaces sort of opened up. I also think we did well to go long to Bukayo Saka. I think if we'd had Kai Havertz, we probably would have had even more joy as another outlet going long over that press. I think the other thing, though, and it's something actually Alex Barker from The Athletic points out, which I think is a brilliant point. Spurs were very narrow, but in the second half, especially once they got more disconnected, we did so well with this man-to-man scheme of crossing over, of players swapping, Gyökeres swapping sides, Eze swapping sides, and getting closer together. When you have a team, especially a front three, who are a lot closer together, it's a lot harder to man mark you because you don't know where to jump, you don't know who's going to be where. Saka, Eze, Gyökeres, Trossard, as sort of the game went on, other players coming on as well, we did really well to find moments of narrowness and exploit that. And if you look at where the goals come from, we exploited them. We recognised what they were trying to do. We had a couple of shaky moments early on where we're giving the ball away because they are stepping onto us. But once we started to break through them, once we disconnected them, we were finding those long balls. And then we were having moments where we were creating dilemmas for them and opening up their shape in the midfield. And Declan Rice was having space to carry through the midfield. Didn't think we quite used that to its full extent, but we were finding lots and lots of ways through it. So, yeah, from a tactical perspective, I think we dealt really, really well with a team that had clear intentions, and we clearly batted them away.
Yeah, and I do think that you can split this really small segment into in possession and out of possession benefits, because for me, the biggest reason, and I'll just say this quickly, that I felt that the Wolves let me down was more of the out of possession application, because I felt like we've had in possession issues all season that we've talked about on the pod. as far as central progression. This idea about having a vertical and a horizontal space, getting people close, getting your best players central and as close to goal as possible. Like, these principles are not things that we on the squad haven't talked about. I know. These aren't things that we haven't talked about this season, right? So for me, it was like, okay, fine, we're dealing with those issues. Those are things that we've dealt with. However, out of possession, I have not seen this team not be aggressive man-to-man, not close their distances, not be able to follow their assignments, and not be passive to an action. That, to me, was what really angered me. And, we just didn't see that in our work here. So, like, when you're talking about getting people closer together as far as being a narrow front three, look, that kind of relates to some in possession principles about making sure that your forwards are central and close to goal. It's like another way of basically saying that. And we know the benefits of that, and we've talked about it. But for me, it was more of the proactivity versus reactive thing. That Wolves felt reactive. We were reacting to Wolves putting pressure on us by dropping deep. We were reactive to some of the things Wolves were doing. Yeah. Whereas here, we were a lot more aggressive man-to-man. Our passing still wasn't perfect. There were still some issues in the first half as far as, in my opinion, the build-up and in terms of really exerting control. Like, I really felt like the second half was even a step up from the first half as far as what we saw. Out of possession, we were brilliant minute 1 to 90, in my opinion. But even in possession, we took a step up. And, there were some people like Martin Zubimendi, for me, had one of the most improved first half to second half performances that I saw within game. And some of those things really helped us in possession. But it was that application out of possession, the being more proactive to second balls. It was making sure that we closed the distances, that we were meeting Spurs where they didn't want. And, it resulted in a first half that, despite some scares, they had something like a couple touches in our box while we had 10 or 15. Yeah. So it was all there in the numbers as far as that, but it's also in the tangible things that you could just see everybody reacted to want it. And it was one of those things that I think we can blow up and go macro as far as application and desire and those things. And when you see that from your team, you can feel it, right? And I felt that. The one thing I did want to say is I actually think it's incredibly important that Declan Rice was the one to make a mistake. And maybe I'm going to be controversial. It's the only time that I'm going to be a little bit critical in this. I actually think it was brilliant that it was Declan Rice, especially because he's somebody that has talked, and I don't know if we want to talk about this, but it did frustrate a lot of fans. Like, I don't want to run away from it. Like, when you have a bad result and you see your players going to talk to the media, I'm in two ways about this. I mean, they don't demand to do that, but also at the same token, when you're talking about a player who has, let's have it right, pretty much bailed us out every single match. Declan Rice is our clear, in my opinion, player of the season, who has been absolutely unreal and rising to moments, but let's have it right. And let's be fair. Like, he's completely responsible. He's one that's yelling to focus prior to the goal. And he's talked a lot in the pre-match. And then he does something that isn't focused. And he accepts responsibility. But then what's his reaction? What's the team's reaction? And it's not to be reactive. It's to be proactive. He himself keeps running. He himself keeps making the right decisions. He owns to his mistake. And I just think that it was good that the team bailed out Rice for once.
Yes.
And I think that's a huge growth point that I don't want us to develop into a team that, again, we're relying on individuals to dig us out. That is not our ethos. And so it was a humble reminder, even to the most mentality monster in the squad, that you can mess up and you can rely on this team to pick you up when you mess up.
Yeah.
And I don't do this to kill Declan, but I just think it's a really big mentality shift for this team, because I do think he's probably the only player that could, hand on heart, go, listen, I've done everything here, and I'm asking you guys to pick up. And in a big moment for that to happen, I thought this was a huge growth point within the team, a trust point, where not only does a performance against your rival raise all ships, but your mentality leader, whatever you want to call it, your biggest voice in the dressing room. I don't doubt that Declan's not the biggest voice. We're not talking about leadership, but the loudest voice. He's fallible, but you can trust us, and that's okay. And that's important to me. You can't elevate above a team, because that's not how you're going to win this trophy, and especially how Arsenal win. We win by committee. So that was really important to me.
Go on, Ryan.
Just really quickly, I mean, he's kind of like the final player at the back line to have made a high-profile mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Zubimendi, he's obviously had it against Man United and Spurs. Gabriel's had it against Bournemouth. He's had it in other games as well, which he's not been punished. Calafiori had it a few times at Villa Park, in which he didn't get punished. Saliba had it against Beto a couple of times. Timbers had it a couple of times as well. So he's like the final player out of there. Raya as well has had a couple of moments as well, who's there to make a mistake. And we were obviously so annoyed in the moment, but I did love his reaction. He was like, "Yeah, my fault, guys. Sorry. Let's just move on."
Yep.
You know. So
yeah, George, you've spoken about the sort of benefits from a team perspective. I also think there's benefits just from him. There was one. He spoke really well, and look, ultimately, he's going to have been. I doubt he asked to do the interview. I'm sure he was asked to do it and said that he would do it. There was one answer I didn't love. And it's similar. I don't know if you guys remember. I mentioned it a few times. There was a Gabriel Jesus interview in his first season where he basically says these boys don't know how to win, and it's nowhere near that. I hate that, and he was sort of separating himself. But basically, he was asked a question, and the interviewer said something, and it was like, is everyone scared? It was some kind of angle, and he went, "Well, me, no," and I went, "Don't do that." Yeah. Don't do that. Do not do that, because this is and he probably didn't mean it. And I'm sure it's difficult in interview scenarios, whatever. But I remember watching that going, don't love that answer. And I'm kind of glad he made the mistake, because I imagine, and Declan is this kind of guy. He probably will go, yeah, my bad. I can make mistakes too. And it just pulls you back in, and you don't want to create any disconnect between the group. Declan Rice is beyond reproach in this team, but I just felt as though post Wolves you could maybe feel that there was a bit of a thing, and you hear certain things about how people respond in the dressing room, and I just don't want there to be any disconnect. So I'm kind of glad that that's happened to some degree, and the result that it had. Also, just picking up, George, on what you said as well, because I think I want to go one step further. I think the big thing for me at the minute with this Arsenal team, I spoke about this on Sky on Saturday, we speak so much, it feels, or we go into games so much with what do they not want to do, and what do we want to do to them because they hate doing this specifically, right? And what that does is it plays, I've said made this point many times, I won't make it again, it makes you play to the opposition, right? I think in this game, we just got that balance a bit better, especially in this. And I think it's in possession, out of possession. Out of possession, you have to be so aware. In possession, you can be a bit more, here's what we want to do. I don't really care what you guys think. Here's what we want to do. And it felt like we got that balance a lot better in this game. And I think it's where I want to head with this team, especially in possession. Let's move on to sort of the incident, let's say. We've spoken about the Declan Rice mistake. That happens. He responded fantastically. Fair play to him, and we move forward, and fair play to the team. And I think there's a conversation maybe about mistakes and throwing in on net, but probably not for this podcast. Let's talk about the first Eze goal. Rohan, a Mikel Arteta probability ball.
I was just going to say that. I was literally going to say that.
Get the ball wide, put it into the 6-yard box, something will happen, and it does. And Eze scores again. We'll talk about Eze in just a second. But yeah, just the sort of that goal itself.
That is the classic Arteta.
So goal. Arteta.
It's Saka beating his man. Well, he gets a little bit fortunate with the Sarr ricochet, but then it's with his weaker foot, put it across the face of goal, just put it there, have a lot of numbers in the box to crash, and law of averages, it will fall to you. It's not just Arteta though. Julian Nagelsmann did a really good interview before with Ralf Rangnick, and it was, I think it was 2 years ago. And do you remember that stats bomb chart that I used to always talk about? The one where it was like per shot, the number of
how many people you got in the box?
How many people you got in the box? Yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting for the update to last season and this season, to be honest, but Bayern Munich were always like head and shoulders of everybody else. And Julian Nagelsmann's literal theory was, well, if I just have like 1 billion players in there, if I keep having situations in which I'm getting cutbacks or crosses, it's going to fall to someone. It is, so it was Arteta-esque. And, Eze, he's had a lot of those moments as well. Not top of the box, but central, getting there and then finishing the action. So, yeah, I think it was just like a classic Eze goal for Arsenal. And it's also a classic Saka chance creation down the wide area as well. So, I had that immediately in my head yesterday.
Probability ball, and there was that a really good screenshot I think going around of basically every single player was within 5 yards at least of the box or in the box, and that tells you something. Let's pause on Eze for just a second. There were some quotes from Arteta which I thought were interesting. I want to get your guys' take on it. On if he this is from the Arsenal.com website. This is a mistake, I believe, on if he know about Eze's goal-scoring prowess in the second half of the season. We looked at every stat, but that one, to be very honest, no. George did. So what's wrong with you? I mean, he's scored 5 goals in the last 2 games against them, which is extremely difficult to do, but he hates Spurs. And by the way, we spoke about the interaction, but it's so funny. But I could see that he wanted to prove something. He was upset, even with me, because I didn't play him in the other day from the beginning and some of the decisions that I made. I start to understand how we're going to get the best out of him now. I thought that was a really, really interesting quote on Eze, and George will come to you on it. My gut instinct when I read that is we've signed a star. Now, if you've ever, I'll use my old industry, the acting industry, there are stars and they need to be treated in certain ways. You maybe need to massage the ego sometimes, and I'm not in any way suggesting as egoic, I'm just using this as an analogy. They can give you unbelievable performances. They can go out on a Saturday night, on the gala night of the show when the press is in and the reviewers are in, and they just give you this. They find a new level in their performance that you've never seen before, and they get you that 5-star review. Maybe they come in on the Monday and they're like, I can't be bothered today, and do a half-hearted performance. I don't think that's Eze. I'm not saying he's like that, but I do think on the Saturday night he rises. I think maybe that's what Arteta is referring to. I could be wrong. He's the sort of guy who loves these moments, who loves, look at his involvements over the course of the season. I think it's when he's rarely been sort of one of the goal scorers in a 3-0 or something, and he's not the story. When he scores, when he's involved, he's the story. And I love that. We've needed a player like that for a long time, especially when we get into the latter stages of the cup competitions, when we get into the latter stages of the Premier League. If you have a guy who has a bit of a kind of, I like being the guy who wins you the game on the Saturday night, great. That's my read on what Arteta is saying. Again, I'm not in any way suggesting he's unengaged or doesn't focus. He's a top-level footballer, of course he does. But I just think that might be the thing he's referring to.
Look, I was even going to ask you, can we have an Eze section? What do you think about those quotes? Because I thought that was fairly particular. When I analyze what made Eze pop during Spurs, and we talk about Eze, one of the criticisms is that in general play is Eze somebody that, is visual enough? Like, is he in the game as much as we want, right? And Eze is a man of moments, and if he adds consistency, we start talking about a different level superstar, etc. And I've always said this throughout my studies, that length of studying isn't equivalent to quality. An hour of really good studying where you're focused can be just as good as 3 hours when you're tired. And it has a bit more to do with understanding impact. An impact on the team, because if we're defining a player that we know can game break, but for 88 minutes will be absent, we need to understand that the impact of game breaking only a few can do. So we need to understand what type of player we've got. And a lot of times I feel that Mikel, his biggest issue that he's always had in his entire coaching career was understanding what plan B could do in comparison to plan A. So he has an idea of what his 10 should look like and what Martin Odegaard has provided for a while. And a lot of that had to do with stuff out of possession and going out of the block and the progressive tendencies of that. He didn't have an Eze for a while. Like, our pocket players in general are things that we've only really got, guys, in the last year to 6 months. I mean, Ethan Nwaneri, people would argue some of our best pocket play comes from Ethan Nwaneri, who really only debuted last season. Eze we bought this season. Like, the idea that Mikel has had a player ahead of the ball to receive and float in the final third is not true. Like, even Ozil was somebody that, by the way, that floated a lot more than people gave him credit for. He was somebody that did come deep. He was somebody that could orchestrate from deep. Ozil was a very unique playmaker that was through the length of the pitch. And whilst Eze can drop deep, and he's even made mention that he feels like later in his career he could be a DM, which I thought was an even more interesting quote. Fundamentally, this is a player that relies on instinct, that relies on combination. And the one thing that I looked at too, guys, and it's the combination with him and Gyökeres. It's the combination with him and Marino. When has Eze popped? it was with proximity to players. Because Eze's one of those players, guys, that whilst he does have a high carrying capacity and a great touch and is very inventive, he's not elite physically. And for me, when you isolate Eze, you isolate him out of the game, but you also isolate him of connection. And he's ultimately somebody that is an empathetic player in everything that he does. Every touch is considered, not just for himself, but for his teammates. He cares about what his teammates are going to receive it on. He cares about how one little touch will open a little bit of space elsewhere. And to me, empathy comes from connection. And when you starve a player of empathetic connection who needs those things to be involved, they disassociate. And they'll do the bare minimum as far as what you're telling me, but you're not going to get the best out of him. And I just hope what Arteta meant by understanding how to get the best out of him is as simple as getting Eze connections, surrounding Eze with people that will make runs off him, not asking him to be the hub, to start spraying and starting attacks. Let him be the person you go through, not necessarily be the one you start with or even end with. He has to be a connector. Now, sometimes that will mean he finishes chances. Sometimes that will mean he does a simple 1-2, but he's the conduit. He's not the tap. Yeah. And you've got to understand that play flows through him. Doesn't begin and end with him. It flows through him. And that can be maybe a little bit of an abstract comment, but it's really simple. Get your damn players close together, and Eze will thrive. If he's got one or two options ahead of him, this is a guy that will find you. So make sure you give him connections. If you put him out and he's isolated and away from the game, Eze's disinterested, you're disinterested, and you lose your shape. So if you're going to play him in a side that has connections, runners off him, and doesn't make him be the one to start progression. Let it flow through him with the freedom to end. You know, because that finish, guys, was incredible, by the way. Like, I don't know if people saw, he fully meant that. That touch, by the way, to get it up to volley was intentional. It wasn't a mistake. And I just think that, like you said, man, like I've said post-February Eze, I think there's a thing. If you go back the last two seasons and you look at his April and his May specifically, the last 2 months of the season, he's consistently got 50% of his output in the last 2 years. I don't think that's coincidence.
No. And I think, look, I spoke from a sort of maybe a mental perspective, yours more a technical perspective, but I think from just a profile perspective and what you're sort of touching on there with Mikel, when I think about players ahead of the ball, let's say ahead of the six that he's used, it's been Granit Xhaka, it's been Declan Rice, it's been Mikel Merino, that's the type of player he likes ahead of the ball, and there is a limitation in that sense, and you know we have to allow Mikel to learn. You know, everyone has Pep Guardiola has to be allowed to learn and understand players and things, and I love that quote just to say, okay, I'm beginning to understand what he is, and whatever angle you take on this, I think I'm really excited to see what this next step is. Rohan, I don't want to cut you out of that discussion.
I think you both put it really well. I think the point about, you know, the options that he's had previously. I mean, there was one moment at the very start of the season when we played Man City and Mikel Merino played right centre mid, and Mikel Merino wasn't poor in that game, but the way that City were playing and how they were pressing onto us and the space that was free that we could exploit, and we did it many times as always where Mikel Merino was standing, you know, and Mikel Merino did some very nice things in the game, but you just wondered, man, if you'd started Eze in this game, I think he could have exploited the space a lot better. And the fans aren't idiots. Like, you go me and you. but like, I remember in the first half, and this is that time where there was an expectation for us to batter City at the Emirates. There was that feeling going into that game because I don't think anybody envisaged City to be the juggernaut that would be competing against. It was Liverpool, and there was a real frustration going into half time. One, big because we were 1-0 down, but also I think because of Mikel Merino, every time he received the ball, there was a bit of a groan because they wanted to see Eze, and you could sense it. And straight away in the second half, what does he do? Half-time sub. Eze comes on for Merino. And then you obviously see towards the end of that game, Eze with the brilliant ball over the top for Martinelli. I think there's something there with that. In terms of the game and Arteta's comments, this is why I'm intrigued to rewatch it, because I didn't see anything from the game to suggest, you know, of something just like clicking. You know, I've seen Eze have these games for us, like against Spurs, obviously, earlier on in the season. So I'm intrigued to see if there's actually something really specific that he saw that he's taken away from that. But what I will say though with Eze is I have been a bit annoyed with him where he hasn't stepped outside the block at times a little bit more personally, because I do feel the Wigan game, for example, you know, it's Wigan, they're not good, but you saw what Eze can do when he shows the ball, he steps outside the block, and then he can play the pass. I don't think it's his best quality, but I feel like in the game against Brentford, for example, and one of the reasons why he did get hooked is because he isolated himself from the game. I felt there were moments in which, you know, it's frowned upon when Ødegaard steps outside the block every single time. I'd actually argue if Eze stepped outside a little bit more outside the block, you'd see him influence the games a little bit more. And I think that's something that people have felt he can do more in. Certainly the final action is there, top of the box shots on goal. But I think he's got more to add than just being a low touch player, you know. So
I think so, but I think it's also back to what George was saying about like he give him connections rather than ask him to seek connections, if that makes sense. And I think that might be where you get the most out of him. I don't know. I mean,
maybe that's what Arteta's alluding to. You know,
and maybe that's what he's alluding to. I mean, let's see. But I think it's a really interesting one. I think look, his hatred for Spurs is generational. I do. Just to close off in this section, what's amazing about this now, and hopefully this gives him the platform. There's the funny aspect of this, and then there's the sort of the analysis aspect of this.
Yeah,
he could do nothing else in an Arsenal shirt. He's already a fan favourite because of what he's done, right?
Yeah.
He should take that, enjoy that for a couple of days, and then go, okay, so what's there to lose? What is there to lose? I can be whatever I want in an Arsenal shirt. I've done the thing. I've arrived. I've scored 5 goals against Spurs in that season. I might relegate them, or might mean Arsenal win the league. And I can be now whatever I want. So let me have a conversation with Mikel. Let me see what he wants out of me. Let me see what I want from my career. And let's work together, because I think it feels, maybe, I don't know. I'm really projecting. I could be totally wrong. It feels like a little bit like he's been coasting. I wouldn't be surprised if he hasn't had that many conversations with Mikel. I don't know. I can't imagine him banging down the door saying, teach me. Probably on the training ground. I'm sure he's fine. I'd love this to be the moment where he says, Mikel, that's what I can do for you. So let me show you, but also I can work with you. And I think now might be a moment. George, I know you've got something to say.
It was one of those things when he first signed. I remember telling you, listen, he has to start to be arrogant. Like, okay, this was a dream. It's really cute the way that we've got this in terms of the return of a past tail end grad, and like you're living your dream, and you know, I get that. But mate, you're Eberiche Eze. Like you need to be like, I belong. I am. How old is he? I swear he's 27.
27.
Okay.
Yeah.
27. Prime age.
Sounds 28.
Been one of the best creators in the Premier League, seasons on the bounce now. And as much as it's a relief that, you know, you've come to Arsenal, it's a relief that Arsenal has got you. That needs to happen, you know? And I think we saw a bit of that. Like the whole thing about, you know, Mikel's being like, he was a bit upset about me not coming from the jump. I'm just seeing like the inklings of, okay, now give me responsibility. Like I've had my 6 months. It's been great, but I want to be important. And look, there's no one that doesn't know it better than a fan himself. And he's clearly a fan. His whole team is a fan. So like these moments against Spurs, they give him a taste of superstardom. And I'm sorry he wants it. And he's just a more reserved person. He's a really good person, but he's not somebody that wants to be like, he's not Declan Rice. He's not exuberant. I do think he's one of those introverted types of people that doesn't like to be praised. Like, you know, like, oh, you're so good. And he's like, oh, thanks. And he kind of like blushes. So he's one of those. But deep down, this is somebody that needs to accept that responsibility. I think he will. I think this is a recollection, at least, of the coach acknowledging that he hasn't used him as much as he could. And that's what I take away more than anything. That Mikel has said, look, I'll admit there's something that I didn't do wrong. What that is, we can speculate and whatnot, but the fact that Mikel says, look, we need an important Eze, and let me just say this, Eze on fire wins us trophies. Like, that's the level of talent we're talking about. So it makes sense to cultivate it.
I agree. I totally agree. Just want to give a quick shout out before we talk about Victor Gyökeres, because we should, to Bukayo Saka, because I think, again, it's going to go under the radar. because he didn't get a GA. But by the way, he should get an assist for that first one. But anyway, most duels contested with 22, most passes in the final third, most touches in the opposition box, most fouls won, most take-ons completed, and equal most shots on target. I'm only going to say this. We don't need to have a section about this. If you can't enjoy Bukayo Saka's season because he's not getting GA, fine. You're missing out. You are missing out. The GA is in the post, I'm sure. He's close, and I think the more influence he gets in the middle of the pitch, I don't think that was necessarily the game for that. But yeah, I think Bukayo Saka deserves a huge shout. George, actually, I'll come back to you. Rohan and I did a section on Gyökeres on the instant reaction. I thought I was being really positive because I said I think he has the best ball striking I've seen under Mikel Arteta. I think I'd go that far in terms of just the mechanics of how hard he can hit the football. It's incredible. And if we can get him into more situations like the ones that we did, we're laughing. I caveated with I thought he had a bit of a poor first half, but people want to hear praise, and he deserves praise. And putting everything aside of his
how much you
limitations,
hate him,
how much I have a dartboard on my wall of Victor Gyökeres and just can't admit I'm wrong. Let's do some praise because he was excellent yesterday. He was truly, truly, truly excellent. His second half, especially, I thought from a hold-up perspective, that's the best he's looked in an Arsenal shirt. I think how Rehan earlier you said, we needed that, you needed that. He needed that. He needed a moment in a big game like that to go and score. I'm really, really excited to see how he kicks on. He looks leaner. He looks fitter. He looks more involved. His hold-up's better. His movement was much better in the second half. Yeah, big fan.
I think that it's a player that people have wanted to do really well, and there was camps before the season. So you're not going to escape that now and in the post. That's the last thing I'll say on that topic. I think that when you analyze the Gyökeres performance, the things that when you talk about good link up, it's not battling. It's not going shoulder to shoulder, flat footed, trying to compete with center backs that you're not going to win. It was dropping in, keeping things 1-2 touch. I think that's the best way for Gyökeres to function.
Yep.
I've seen enough. And I've already commented on the reasons why. For me, it's a stability thing. He hasn't stuck down in his core. But one thing that he is improving on, absolutely, is when he leans shoulder to shoulder, when he leans a little bit more vertical to the duel as opposed to horizontal. He just does not have the stability when going horizontal. But when he does lean a little bit more vertically in approaching the duels, he's able to come and use his momentum to have the touch go behind his center of gravity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I think benefits him. So when he comes back from deep to do what I like to call an up, back, and through, a very simple come deep, lay off, spin behind. That's it. Don't compete to pull it and kind of put your hands back and try to be isolated and be flat-footed and be on your heels and try to bring the ball down, because that's just not something that is in your wheelhouse. But when you're moving and you're on the move, you don't make it a physical battle. It becomes a battle of momentum. That's what Saka understands. Like, you don't need to be 6'3", jacked in order to be able to pull a ball out of the air. All you need to be is understanding momentum and understanding transfer of contact. These things. And that's what I think Victor Gyökeres did a lot better in this match, in which a lot of his layoffs were 1-2 touch. They weren't the set. I do think in the first half, I don't know if you guys talked about it. I don't think it was great. His battles with Dragusin, he struggled. But he started to understand that the movement aspect and pulling Dragusin out of those areas, making it a pure physical battle, didn't help him and helped Dragusin. Yep. And then he started to move a bit and he started to float a bit and he started to his willingness to offer himself. And that has always been my biggest gripe, both in box movement and whatever. Just offer yourself as an option, and he did it. And I couldn't be more ecstatic. That is why I felt like he had one of his better performances, broadly speaking, not just the goals. I think it was one of his better between the box games because of it. Now I just need you to have that same application in the future, and you're going to look better. You're going to be found. And yeah, I mean, he can strike a ball, can't he? I mean, no one said that he can't. Man. And, if we can find areas for him to pop in and around zone 14 with space so that he's got time to shoot, then yeah, that's a problem.
But he has to be part of that. And yesterday he was. And that's the key difference. I was just looking at his heat map just then, and I would love to overlay his heat map sort of maybe between November to January and that heat map yesterday, they're chalk and cheese in terms of the positions. He's not, coming out the central areas completely, but he's doing enough to drop into pockets, drifting wide, allowing other players centrally. It's just a little bit more. That's all it is. The problem is when he's just central and being the one occupying it, he's cutting himself off. Whereas if he's dropping deep, he's coming a bit more. He's spinning in behind. He's becoming a nuisance, and then it stops him being rigid and basically turned around and put, in the terms that you said earlier, George. But Rohan, from a more sort of mental perspective, mental degree, without Kai Havertz and with Jesus in the form that he's in, because goodness me, the last couple of performances have been pretty poor from him, we need Victor Gyökeres. And I think this is why people are very, very insistent on him working and very, very keen to, as George alluded to earlier, let you know that the camps are the way they are and you can't get in type thing. They want it to work, and I completely understand that because it has to. Because Kai Havertz is not fit, we haven't got Mikel Merino. Jesus is in the form he's in. I think he needed that. He's done a few interviews after a few games recently, and he feels lighter to me. I remember speaking, and people called me an armchair psychologist, but fine. I literally got a qualification in it, but okay. When he first came in, he had a real reservedness to him, and I thought, I don't know how that blends with the group. He seems lighter, he seems calmer, he seems more playful. He's in an interview with Freddie Ljungberg, he's laughing, he's joking and stuff. He seems a lot more settled, and I think you can see that in his play.
He's came a long way in a lot of regards, actually, because do you remember the first game against Man United? And again, it's like it hits you proper, like coming from Sporting to an Arsenal team in which the demands are a different level in terms of the information you have to process in and out of possession. That Man United game, I remember in the high press, he was really struggling in terms of what assignment he had to pick up. And what that meant is if your centre forward doesn't start the pressure and initiate the pressure from the get-go, it leads to a bad ripple effect on other players jumping, taking on your duty, and then it's a cascading effect. But then, and Arteta, like, after that, he's always referred to how, Victor is getting really sharp in the press now. He's saying that because he knew from the start that he was taking his time with it. But yeah, to go back onto the he needed it. I've always felt like Victor Gyökeres needs a game in which his goal truly matters.
Yeah, golden moment.
Yeah, you could argue Sunderland, when the game is 1-0 and it is a little bit end-to-end, that was a massive goal for him. But I'm talking about level. The game is at a level game state. 1-1, 0-0, whatever it is, and your goal puts us in the ascendancy. And that's what he needed. He's done it against Burnley, but it's Burnley, isn't it? And he's done it against Everton. It was a penalty. This was a big one. His other goals this season have came when we were already 2-0 up, really, outside of the likes of Kyrat and Chelsea at the Cup, which we were 1-0 up as well in that game. So I think he needed that moment. And yeah, it's about fashioning those moments for him. How can we continue to do that in every single game? It depends on what the opposition is doing, but I knew he was going to score that. I knew he was going to score that when the moment he got it out of his feet and it's just bang. Because the one thing in that first half, and we sent in the IR, and I had sympathy for him, is when we won the ball back, Trossard has the ball and he just balloons it with his left foot. Gyökeres is free. He's literally there. He's going to be on his right foot. And I'm confident he will hammer it in. And my final point with this, and this is going back to how his mentality, I think, is really, really solid. Like, I'd say like his mentality is one of the biggest reasons as to why he has been so successful as of now in terms of what he's done in Coventry, what he's done at Sporting, and now what he's hopefully going to do at Arsenal. Is he never gives up. He continues to go. He's incessant. And the biggest praise I can give to Gyökeres is, and I said this yesterday, Champions League final, if it's in added time, we get a penalty, I'd want him to take it. I would want him to take it. I could not be seeing Saka take it because of what could happen if he misses. I have a feeling Victor Gyökeres would absolutely score it. I think he's cold-blooded like that,
He would.
So
he would, and again, it's similar to the conversation about Eze. We've needed that for a long time, and that's also what people are connecting to. That's why there is this real appetite to see it, because we've wanted this kind of gunman. We've wanted this sort of guy who has cold blood and can smack a football.
Players love him as well.
They love it. It's great.
Can I ask you guys really a question? Okay, I know we've praised, but about effing time, and I include Eze in that, and I even include Medwek. Guys, we recruited nearly £200 million worth of talent. I'm sorry, but they just simply, collectively, not one or the other, have not produced £200 million worth of talent. And I'm really happy to see them working, but about freaking time. both people have had it's fine to understand that there was criticisms on all these players, by the way. I include Madueke needing some criticism, Eze and Gyökeres. But I'm talking collectively, the attacking recruitment that we made a bet on £200 million worth of talent that needed to contribute at least 30 goals and assists. Gyökeres is at 15. Eze is now, I think, at 6 or 7, around there. I think Madueke is about 4 or so as far as the league goes. So, okay, it's good. I can't lie to you and say I didn't expect double between the three of them at this to end the season. So there's time to rectify it, but they're stepping up, and we need it. The team has needed it, and they were bought to do it. So I'm really happy. I think we've done it, but at some point, I just don't want to rewrite history here.
No.
All three of them have needed all three of them. It's not one.
They need to push on. I appreciate, the Spurs game, especially for Eze, it's really nice. 2 games against Spurs, 5 goals. Sorry, for me personally,
got to do more.
That is not enough. And I do think Eze, he's had more moments this season, to be fair, than what he's actually given credit for. Sure. I want him to kick on. And it's the same with Madueke. Me and George did the TCP live previously 3 weeks ago, in which, if we're going to criticise Victor Gyökeres, and his output this season, we have to be consistent with the likes of Madueke, and we can't just sit behind a Saka contingency option. So it's £50 million. You've got to perform and produce output. So, fair.
And I think this is another tick in the Gyökeres camp, which is that I think he's got the most non-penalty goals, and he's got the most goals in 2026 or something from an attacking perspective. Or there's some pretty good numbers from his perspective.
He's got more than Hugo Ekitike in the league this season, so it's looking good for him in the narrative. The strikers.
He's been delivering. He's been delivering. So fair play to him. Right, let's go to your questions. But first, chaps, because there's some context and some questions that are coming up, I want to read to you the run-in. I'm just going to share my screen as well, just with you guys. Forder, don't worry about putting this on screen. Here it is, the run-in. I made this earlier, and you can thank me later for it, and the horrible colour coding. It's truly disgusting to look at, but this is sort of the shape of things. If you want to have a look at it, it's on my X account. I could also put it on the different knock as well on X, or maybe put it on Instagram and so on as well. So just for sort of audio listeners, City had the Palace game, where the date is TBC, but then they're playing Leeds while we play Chelsea. They're playing Forest while we play Brighton. They've got Newcastle in the FA Cup 5th round, and we've got Mansfield. I want to bring particular attention to the games between the Champions League fixtures. So if you have a look at these, so the round of 16 there, we've got Everton at home, and they've got West Ham away. I would argue, even despite Everton being higher in the league, I think the West Ham game is a harder game, personally. Then we come through it and we look into the quarterfinals. The sandwich between the 2 quarterfinals is Chelsea away for Man City and Bournemouth at home for us. Semi-finals, they have Everton away and we have Fulham at home, sandwich between those. I just want to ask before we go to the questions, is there any part of you that sees that as an advantage, having an easier sort of sandwich game? Or if it's City, are we worried they kind of flop in the quarterfinals, then don't have to worry about maybe some semi-finals, or even flop in the round of 16 and don't have to worry about that, and we're more in trouble in the league? I don't know where you're at with those, but I noticed that today and just thought that's an interesting little quirk in this run-in.
Not gonna lie, mate. If we, like I said, we're going back all the way back to the start of this pod. If we apply ourselves consistently from now till the semi-finals, and let's say City do crash out, this league should be done. For me, it should be done personally. So like that's what I'm looking at, and I actually do think going a little bit earlier. I mean, that Newcastle away, that's a horrible fixture to have in the cup, the FA Cup, and we got Mansfield away. Do you know what I mean? These things matter, and then they've got a like you said, West Ham away versus Everton at home. Sandwich there. I think when you look at it as a collective, and especially with that FA Cup fixture as well, I'm looking at our fixtures and looking at the travelling as well, the lack of travelling that we have to do. And we'll see with the Champions League draw. I think we're in a really good place from a fixture standpoint. It was it's just obviously annoying the past couple of games outside of Spurs in which we could have really pulled through a bigger advantage. But yeah, no, I think it's looking good for us in terms of fixture scheduling. And I think that Mansfield draw was really kind to us. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the Carabao Cup is going to be huge, and we're now less than a month away. So exciting. Right, let's get to your questions. If you want priority access to questions on the squad, as well as loads of other things, you can sign up as a patron. You can get that through the Discord. You ask questions on the Discord, or as a YouTube member, of course. So we've got lots and lots of questions on here. There is some AI slop of me getting a haircut. Have you guys seen this?
What?
I've just seen this. I'll share it with you. Hang on, let me just share my screen. I can't show my screen for some reason. Maybe that's for the best.
George, when I put my glasses there.
Yeah. Let's do this question from Nick. Good old Nick. How much does your position affect your ability to captain? And how important is the captaincy really?
I have some probably stronger opinions than most, classic, on some things like
Surely
that.
not.
As far as the position goes, I completely don't have an opinion on that part of the question. I think you can be impactful from anywhere. Just you have to be starting. That is something that I do maintain. I don't agree that a captain should be on the bench. To me, there has to be a voice on the pitch. However, how important is a captain is I do believe that it defines you. And what I don't believe is that there's one leadership style that can succeed. I think any leadership style can succeed. But I do feel the most successful teams, typically their captain emulate a lot of the things that the team values naturally. And when there is disharmony to that, so for example, if you've got a team that's potentially a little bit more respectful, you've got a Pep Guardiola and you've got a Roy Keane, that to me screams disharmony. There's going to be a bit of a difference, in my opinion, about how that team might function. I think a captain needs to be somebody that a lot of people within that team can relate to, but also shows a level of leadership that, guys, there's a lot of times that coaching only gets you so far. If you've ever coached before, you know that you've got to practice, but the minute that ball touches the pitch and the whistle goes, it is a completely different game. No matter how much you try, and this game is for the players. It's not for coaches and for managers. It really is for players, and things don't go to plan. And you need somebody with the strength of character to remain steadfast when things come your way. So I think it's incredibly important. I just don't think that there's one leadership style that can succeed. I do think typically that leadership style should make sense with the group you have. Like, I've never felt like in a group project, the one that took the lead, if there's somebody that I didn't like or I didn't really click with as a group, and there was a dichotomy there, regardless of whether it was right or wrong, it wasn't a successful group project. I do think generally that, it should align, generally speaking. But as far as the positions goes, for me, you can be a keeper, you can be a center back, midfielder, whatnot. I prefer spine players, I will say. That. I always think that a goalkeeper, a center back, a central midfielder, your technical leader, a leader in 1/3 of the pitch, whether it's the final third, the middle third, the back third, it can be any of those things. But those are my pillars. But as far as what that leader looks like, I don't care. It could be anything because there's tons of ways to lead successfully.
Yeah, it does depend on I think we also have to separate out, because I think a lot of people would say, who are the leaders in this group? Well, Rice, and where does that come from? Maybe the fact that he speaks more, and you see him. I'm not accusing him of doing it from I don't think he does this consciously, but a lot of his leadership is performative. And that's not necessarily bad. It's just it's getting the group together. It's speaking. It's performing, and there's a performance element to it, which isn't always a bad thing. But there's leading by example. There's leading by being the ear for people to listen to. There's leading by simply just sort of holding space for people. There's so many different ways of doing it. The only thing I know you said a preference, but you said at the beginning you're not sure of the position. I do think I'd push for the centre of the pitch. I think it does matter.
I
personally,
I think so. my own personal preference, it's always been centre mid because he's literally bang in the middle.
Sorry to cut. I'd love to know how many Premier League winners there are with a captain on the wide areas of the pitch.
I don't think there's a lot.
No,
Look
I mean,
at
you're
your
looking at
Pirlos, your
you're looking
Keane,
at
your Vieiras, your
like Azpilicueta, at right back for Chelsea.
that was
Okay,
one
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, but it's not many. I mean, like I think for me, like the perfect example of what I would like preference, even though I don't believe this is, it's not a one size fits all. But Patrick Vieira, Invincibles, that's perfect. Centre mid, bang in the middle.
Yeah.
That for me is perfect. Like if I had a preference, Declan Rice then positionally would be my preferred captain in that sense. But I think the way the game has evolved, and you just have to look at Manchester City, in which they've had leadership groups, they've had a cluster of 5 or 6 players who are able to lead in different ways. I think that's what's key. It's the same as a manager in which you can't treat every single player the same way. This is why I do believe a lot of the old traditional managers in the past, not just tactically that the game has moved past them, but also from the ability to manage a player like a Sam Allardyce. I think a Sam Allardyce is someone who is going to be managing a player the same way, irrespective of who they are. I don't believe that is how you get the best out of your star players. Some of your star players are the ones who don't want to be shouted at and constantly, at you, at your face. They need a different way of being managed, and it's the same way in a game as well. Like Declan Rice is a great example of performative in the sense of if someone has not jumped in the press, just watch Declan Rice. Declan Rice is like, he's really like out there with it. Whereas like Martin Odegaard is someone who's a little bit more, come on, let's now move this way. Let's now move this way. And I prefer that now in the modern day. I like the fact that we do have the City type of approach in which we've got a group of 5 different types of characters. You've got Big Gabby in there. You've got Rice. You've got Marino, who tactically is fantastic, but he's not someone who is performative, isn't he? He does it in his own way as well. So, that's
just did a quick Google. The only one is Gary Neville in 06, 07, 07, 08. Azpilicueta technically was captain, but he wasn't club captain. He was a captain on the pitch because John Terry was still registered, but he wasn't playing.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. But even Azpilicueta was he technically a third centre back because they played wing backs that season, didn't they?
Are we talking Conte season?
Yeah.
He was.
Was he wing back?
He was. Yeah, no, he wasn't wing back. He was third centre back because it was Moses and Alonso wing backs.
Only Gary Neville.
Yeah,
Gary Neville. Honestly. Let's do this one from Reg. We know Eza tends to heat up in the second half of seasons. Please God, let that be true for us. Do we have any other players in the squad who come alive in the latter part of a campaign? Kai Havertz.
I'm feeling sad again. Mikel Merino was the glue for that. Clutch Mikel Merino, I had a feeling. Like if I was a banker, the no-brainer. The no-brainer. Mikel Merino, I could put all my stocks in him to deliver.
But guys, the pillars, I still believe. I think Saka delivers constantly. I don't think it has to be back half of the season. I look at Saliba, who I think has taken another level this season, doesn't get talked about, in my opinion, because I think that Saliba has been clearly the best center back between the two. There's stuff there to have as a conversation. Declan Rice is somebody that I think steps up, and there's I think that there's one other player, namely in Raya, who I think is a very good person that responds to failure quite well. Maybe not quite the second half of the season, but typically when he's had a really shocker. And I personally critiqued him for Wolves. I thought he was great this game. Like the next game, he came really good about claiming crosses. Even the Luton game that we say, that was probably his worst game in an Arsenal shirt. From that point on, starts to be brilliant.
Heritage.
The heritage moment but he is somebody that responds to adversity quite well. As much as Gabriel has, I think, had a very tough couple of months, just generally, big Gabby M, by the way. He is somebody that even in mistake, he'll concede a goal and then he'll be the one creating a goal at the end of the pitch 20 minutes later, he is somebody that I think responds to fault quite well. So I think we've got several characters that respond to failure or mistakes, if you will, quite well.
Question from, will the real Dinny please stand up? What is each of the boys' hair routines and how long have they been with their barbers?
Oh, God.
Hair routines.
You got a hair routine, Rohan?
My hair's really straight though. You know, like straight hair, you can't really do a lot with it unless you put like, gel or clay in it. I'll put hairspray in every now and then if I'm going.
Hairspray.
Yeah,
Okay.
to keep, because mate, my hair, if it's windy, it's over. It's absolutely over. It's everywhere. It just does not stay.
Everyone's seeing the hairline.
Hairline's
Lucky
strong.
them. Lucky them.
What is your? I reckon you've got a bit of a long hair routine.
Not really.
No.
Just I put this like cocoa
Oh yeah.
butter in it. It's actually
Shea
for black
butter?
hair.
Is it shea
But
butter?
it's actually for black hair, but it actually suits my hair.
Yeah.
What's my mum not telling me? Let's a joke, just to be clear. Please laugh. It's not some trauma. Lee Gunner, #1 fan, says, it seems like whenever we gain a lead, our technical quality drops. Can you guys point out why this is? As it seems like gone are the days where we can comfortably hold on to a 1-goal lead.
Well, I have my feeling on 1-goal leads just in general. Past performance is not indicative of future performances, right? And future results. When we've had 1-goal leads in the past, we've defended really well, right? As a collective, brilliant. And we've also had a lot of games this season where I thought we've defended well as a collective with a 1-goal lead. However, variance can always strike you, irrespective of how well you defend. Like the very best teams have had 1-goal leads slip up because it's just a moment of madness that you relinquish and then they score. Like against Sunderland, I really disagree at the Stadium of Light, for example, that game. I disagree that Sunderland were peppering us, in the final 10 minutes of that game and we were under siege. All it was one really poor action between Gabriel and Raya, and then Brian Brobby also, how he finished it that way as well was really fortuitous as well. But that's what can happen, mate. And I think, like, for me, I try and get away from 1-goal leads and trying to push this team to be a team that gets those 2-goal leads, to deny that variance from striking twice. If it strikes twice, you are super unlucky, so I do think though there have been games in which there've been some poor habits in terms of not getting out quickly enough. I do maintain, and I'll keep saying this, I don't think Mikel wants this team to sit off. I really don't. I think he's always urging them to push. I believe he always is urging this team to push on, but the team at times they're not able to push on because they're not. When it's like this, so when the ball goes long and you clear your lines, and then the centre forward, that say, is not able to hold the ball down, the team can't collectively all just jump forward and then start pressing, because if they do that, the ball over the top becomes such a big danger. So it's about picking your moment of when to go, and we've not been able to find that moment consistently to go as a collective in some of those games, like against Wolves, for example. Mm-hmm. That's been the issue, not being able to jump out quickly enough. Not necessarily like, poor structural issues the deeper we are. I think it is effectively more down to the fact that this team has not been able to push out as much and put pressure on the ball. I think that's what we do at our best when we're without the ball, even with 1-goal lead. So, it was a bit all over the place, but that's how.
No, I heard that.
I don't know about conceding, but I do think we drop our line. And that has been something that this team has struggled with at different points in the project. Like, don't you guys remember, like, 21, 22, 22, 23, there was times in which people were saying, why is our line?
Yeah, I was just going to Mr. Something contingency.
Yeah. But there was a lot of times that we spoke about it those seasons in which, why is the line dropping? And there was many references in which Mikel's like, no, I want a high line. I want us to operate as the highest line in league. And let's just be honest with ourselves. It's when the team feels like, it wants to let off a bit and rest. Okay, you drop back into your shape because the distances are smaller and it's easier to defend smaller distances than it is larger. And it's really
scary. So, go and stand on a halfway line with like Haaland next to you. It's like scary.
It's not easy. And look, I think that I don't like it. I do think that we can be more aggressive and proactive after a goal in terms of making sure that our positioning is still aggressive and meeting the opposition. That I agree with. The conceding point, it's variance as far as us being punished for it. But you could argue it's a downstream effect of maybe us not keeping our line as consistently of when we go, because we invite more pressure. And that I think is fair. But it's not like Mikel says, let's concede and let's do it. I don't agree with that.
It's more of
guys, we have to concede, guys, please.
I really object to the claim, like he's there and saying, right, we're going to try and control this game without the ball deep now. He wants to push it forward, but ultimately he's not on the pitch. He's not feeling it the way those players are feeling it, in which, can I push forward this time? Can I go 1v1 with like 5 minutes to go? Is that the right move? Am I going to be more comfortable where it's more of a 3v1 for us at the back when the box is flooded? But then obviously it becomes pinball and it could just fall to someone. I think there's a lot more to it than just saying, Mikel is looking for this team to sit off. The only time I'd say he felt that the team needed to sit off was early days. When we had David Luiz, when we had Mustafi, when we also had Rob Holding then as well. So, that's when I felt, he was comfortable in just doing it that way.
To the dreaded website, In Football says, love Ben White, but at what point do we look for a profile replacement? KOD, long throws.
What do you? I have a feeling we might buy him.
I do think we will.
I don't know, because I remember suggesting him back in Fiorentina. My issue is he's I did with Dorgu. The issue is...
I believe you. Just every time we say KOD. By the way, guys, I actually suggested it.
Yeah, but I just don't know if I would now, though, I guess, and people might see that as hypocritical. My trouble is Coyote's a good athlete, but as far as replacing what Ben White is in the final third, it's not just athleticism and running power. It is the distribution from deep as far as build-up. It's the passing range. It's the crossing variety, the half-space stuff. Like, there's a lot there that you would move on from that Coyote does not add and has needed to work on, and that would need to take it to the next step. Now... no, I get really annoyed. Like, I think, okay, fine, he's in a moment of some kind of physical thing, which I don't even know, because you've got him on Instagram saying he's fine, and then the next time he's not on the bench. So I think it was just something small. But Ben White has shown me a physical level since he's been back that I don't see a physical drop off. Okay, fine, he might have a niggle here and there after being out for so long, but like, are we going to ignore how consistently available that guy was prior to these injuries that we have caused? Like, you have to really think what moving on an asset like that and a leader like that in the back line does for a group that is going to be going to the next phase of life. And, I really don't know, as far as offensive right backs go and certainties, as far as that goes, what you're buying and what you're selling for Ben White and how worth it that is for me. Especially with, I must say, we have a lot of really exciting youth guys in Hale, and I know no one wants to hear that, but we've got Josiah King, Jaden Dixon, who we just recruited. Like, there's Marley Salmon. There's a lot of really top youth right back prospects that we've got that will need... Yeah, Mascara. I was going to say, like, we've said about that utility and that versatility, and I want to see more of that, by the way. So I don't think it's because it's for a lack of options. I would just... Not everything has to be a sell. You annoy me because you're injured, get out of here, has been the mentality for a bit, and there is justification. I don't want to look down on it, but I don't know.
I also don't know how much justification there is. He's missed 6 games in 25-26. Like, it's not that bad. Like, it's not... it's really not that bad. I think what's happened is we had last season where I think the way it was handled, because it sounds like it may have been, should have been done in the summer, wasn't done in the summer, happened in November. That happened. And then it's been a sort of, it becomes a narrative of Ben White is injury prone. And then, the hamstring and the Rob Holding clip comes out. There he is again. Like, there's all these things about him. And then every time he has one game out, everyone's like, oh, well, this is it.
He's gone. Yeah.
And I also physically, I remember speaking on this podcast about like feeling like he wasn't quite physically at the level. The last month or so, he's been fine. I think he's been right at the level of the team. He's looked lean. He's looked fit. Maybe not quite peak, but also really at the level of the team. So I don't know. I'm sure he'll be back. How much of it sometimes is, would he have? Let's say he had that niggle in 21-22, he'd have played through it.
Yeah. He would have. I mean, he did. He literally did. We were trying to save him for that one game shootout against Newcastle. It's like, right, forget putting you on against Spurs when we had a red card. He who shall not be named.
Who?
Final point on the right back thing. Christian Mascara was on for
huge, man.
Yeah, he won the most duels in the
bloody
whole
hell
game.
That performance. There's something to talk about. Again, end of the pod, classic thing that we bring up. There's a topic of conversation there.
Indeed. We
did it a little bit on the instant reaction, but yeah, he Actually, when we thought we weren't live. Yeah, it was a really good performance. I just think pace in this team is like top level pace. I just want like one or two more. I don't want that many more. You don't need that many more. Just one or two. Just like
pace makes you feel comfortable.
Just
always
rapid. Just
you got quick players in your team. You feel like
where's Brando Bailey Joseph? Get him on. Get him on. Final question. We'll have to keep this relatively brief because we've already done it as a one. But there's loads and loads of questions about Eze and his position. And I'm not going to let you tacticos talk your way around it.
You are a tactico as well. I'm not hearing this.
Talk your way around it. I feel like I traverse category. I'm not going to let you tacticos talk your way out of it. Give me a solid, non-Alex Moneypenny answer. What position is Eberechi Eze? In 12 months' time, what do we say he is at Arsenal? Rohan, give me an answer. He picked up the mic. Sorry.
I don't know.
Go on, George.
George. I'm not sure.
Central attacking midfielder.
Which side? Left or right?
I don't care. Floater. Central attacking midfielder.
I buy that. I buy floater. I think you're saying 12 months' time. I don't think I can confidently say left wing. Do you know what I mean?
I'm saying left wing. Piero Encapié.
12 months' time. So you think Calafiori is now benched and sold and he's rubbish? Yep.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly it. No, so thank you for clarifying, because I wouldn't have clarified that, and everyone needed to know that I think he's terrible.
And that Rowhead hates Piero, and it was the bane of his existence that he's been able to perform in the last 3-4 games. About time is what Rohan is saying.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Finally.
Oh, I heard that, Alex.
I didn't say anything, mate. Left wing with Encapié, left back.
Interesting. Encapié's cooking. I'm telling you, he's cooking, isn't he? I'm not telling you. I can't say I'm telling you because I've not been telling you.
You haven't been telling us. Let's be clear. Was it the last director's box where we were talking about two ago?
I think it was 2 ago. It was 2 ago.
You're not allowed to ever get anything wrong.
I'm not allowed to like.
That's how football works. You have to pick. Here's what happens in football. You have to pick a camp of what you do and don't like about a player. If the player ever succeeds, you're washed. You don't, and you hate them, obviously, because you don't rate them. So that's it. You haven't taken on new information. And if they are your player, you get to celebrate them. That's how it works. It's called secure masculinity. It's really good. It's called My Daddy Loved Me. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Listen, we will leave it there. Thank you all for joining us. Good pod. Good fun pod. I knew it would be, but it was a fun one. We've got a data pod coming out for you, hopefully Wednesday. We've got a not a rewatch, sorry. We should have done a rewatch, shouldn't we? We've got a director's box, which if you want to check out, you can check out as a Patreon or YouTube member. But you'll be watching that on what's it called? Not on catch up, as they say. That's not the phrase. There'll be a knockout later on in the week. There'll be a TDK live, and then George and Rohan will also have a scouted out. I think at the moment Piero Encapié is winning, so that'll be fun for you, Rohan, because you hate him. And then of course an instant reaction to Chelsea as well on Sunday. So lots of content. Thank you all for sticking with us. Make sure you subscribe. All that good stuff. Thank you, Rohanicals.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you, Tie-Dye Man.
Thank you, good sir.
And thanks, as always, for watching and listening. And thanks for keeping Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed. Electrifying. Inspiration.